From Washington, D.C. to the heart of America, welcome to Mark Alford's America. I'm freshman congressman from Missouri, Mark Alford, and I believe in America. I believe in you, and most importantly, I believe that our greatest days are still ahead. You know, each week we take you behind the scenes to share the stories, the news, the legislation, and meet the wonderful people who I get the honor of serving with to help shape our great nation. Today, we are talking with a living legend, Congressman Burgess Owens. Congressman Owens was one of the first black athletes recruited to play football at the University of Miami and the third to receive a scholarship. He earned a BS in biology, chemistry, and earned a spot as a 13th pick in the first round of the 1973 NFL Draft. He joined the New York Jets as a safety for 10 seasons, the Oakland Raiders, later on, and won the Super Bowl with a 1980 Raiders team. After retiring from the NFL, Congressman Owens worked in corporate sales and moved his family to beautiful Utah. He now serves as congressman of the 4th District there, serves on the House Education and Workforce Committee and House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Congressman Owens believes in dreaming big and following 4 guiding principles: faith, family, free markets, and education. I'm honored to be in his office today in Cannon Office Building. Congressman, good to see you.
Mark, it's a pleasure, buddy, and I love the way you started that process. I believe in America. And then you'll hear my story of even where I began back in Deep South. That was the way we were taught. I had a dad who was a patriot. A World War II vet.
Yeah.
So we understood early that this country is the greatest in the history of mankind. We need to live for it, fight for it, and make sure we pass this on. So thanks for that.
Where did you come up with these 4 tenets of faith, family, free markets, and education?
You know, it's easy because that's actually when I think about what made my community the great community was. And just a little backdrop. I grew up in the 60s, days of KKK, Jim Crow, and segregation. My first experience, exposure to white Americans was until I was 16 years old. Everything that I grew up with in my foundational concepts came from a totally black community. And I look at that community, there was a couple of things that we believed in. We were not assimilating as a nation, but every community felt the same way about what it took to command respect. And that is meritocracy. You work harder, you study harder, you succeed. And in that process, you command respect. And out of that process of command respect, those 4 areas that I just mentioned was at the top of the tenets in terms of what would make that work. Faith, the family unit, the free market, and education. And my community was at the very top of its game during that time. What a lot of people don't recognize or don't realize, because what we see today and what we're not being taught in our educational system, that in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, because we had this desire to, first of all, prove ourselves as Americans, to make sure that we were not looked down at as victims, that we were looked at as a very worthy race to want to be part of, to want to do interaction, do business with. So we led the country in the 40s, 50s, and 60s in growth of middle class, men matriculating from college, men committed to marriage, and percentage of entrepreneurs. We had until the 1970s black women having a higher percentage of marriage than white women did. We had 40% again of our race being business owners because we could not go out of our community. We stayed there. So my view of our race, very simply, we're succeeding everywhere. And the message from every single one of these professors, entrepreneurs, whatever it might have been, that you live in America, young man, you can do anything you want to here. Just work hard, be respectful, have a good name, and pass a good name down, and good things will happen. And the middle class is on the horizon.
So what happened? What happened in America that got turned on its head?
It wasn't what happened to America, it's what happened to my race. It was not white supremacists that did us in. It was black elitists, black socialists, black Marxists. We have to understand that's what we're fighting. That's what we're here to do in Congress. We're fighting against an ideology that has hated those 4 tenets from the very beginning. Marxists hate faith, family, the free market, education. So what do? They figure out a way to take away people's hope. You divide the family. You take away the idea there's a God in heaven. You don't educate them. Right now, with the education process just talked about, we're at the very bottom of that process because they've stopped teaching our kids how to read, write, and think. When you take away education and a way to articulate ourselves, way to think past our obstacles, we become very dependent. The idea of what we're up against, the ideology, is about how can we make Americans not be Americans of hope, not believe that we're the greatest society in the history of mankind, but believe that we're the worst thing that ever happened. That's the message that we're getting now, and that's why this Congress and the people that we're representing, we have to make sure that voice changes and our kids have this remarkable idea of what can happen as they move forward.
I remember last year, I could not believe it, that I had to stand up on the House floor and debate one of the top Democrats, Mr. McGovern, on why we should condemn socialism in the United States of America. And we had Democrats actively fighting against that resolution and defending socialism.
This has been a slow march. Marxism, socialism, there's been a slow march to our educational system for decades. The upside, and this is where my hope comes in, and it comes down to, number one, realizing where we started. We have a country that began with the godly tenets based on becoming a more perfect union, that we're all equal in God's eyes. That has never happened in the history of mankind. So because we begin with that, the other side has had this idea of slowly beginning to get our kids to think differently. The reason why they can say that is over the decades they've been training that to our kids. The reason why we're now looking across our country and realizing, and you see what's going on in its colleges, see what's going on in corporations, it's DEI and CRT. That is the divisiveness that has been taught to our kids over the decades. So when our kids come out and go into society, they have maintained those ideas. So we're fighting really for the soul and culture of our nation today. And I'll say this: my class 117th, your class 118th, and the ones that will be following, I think, have been a different view of the Republican Party. We're the ones that feel that we can turn this thing around. So we're going to be innovative. We're going to turn things around. We're going to go back to education, make sure that is a way that we re-educate our kids to what our country is all about.
We fought DEI on the armed services. We were instrumental, I think, last National Defense Authorization Act in stripping out a lot of those programs in the military. I think they're dividing America. They're setting division lines up between victors and victims.
Yes.
And that's why I introduced 2 weeks ago the DEI DOA bill that strips all DEI programs out of the federal government.
I'm loving that because we're finally having this conversation. Just think about it. Had it not been for COVID, had not been for the BLM riots all over the place, had not been October 7th, we still would not know where our country, how far we was slid away from our basic foundation. Bills like yours are now being accepted because American people are realizing, he's right. This is crazy stuff. We have to debate whether a man is a man, a man is a woman is a woman. This is stuff that no one in my dad's generation would ever be having these kind of conversations. So we're getting back to basics, and education is a true national security issue. That's why I'm so passionate about education. We need to make sure our kids are being taught about our history, the good and the bad, appreciate our present, and then have a vision for what we can do to continue to be a more perfect union. It is not going the route of socialism, Marxism, and communism. They're the most evil, godless ideologies, and for us to accept that, we're going to be the death of our culture for sure.
We're seeing that in our colleges. I know your committee's taking on
Antisemitism.
Antisemitism. We're seeing. I cannot believe, Burgess, what I am seeing in America. I never thought I would see people openly saying death to Israel, death to America, on our own soil.
Yeah. I think most of us have always been aware of our enemy outside. We have not been as concerned or understand about the enemy within, because the enemy within has used, they've been hiding behind tenure, been hiding behind our college systems, have been attacking our kids. We just had no idea. Now we see it because it's come together one time. And I think that, again, is a blessing from our Heavenly Father, that we're having this conversation today that we would not have had 7 years ago. And because we're having it, what American people do, very simply, once we realize we're under attack, we come out of our little freedom bubble, we come together, we start having conversations like this on both sides of the aisle. And as old Al Davis used to say in the old days, we just win, baby. But we're getting there. And I'm excited about that because the last few Congresses are people that are coming here for the right reasons. Our experiences have told us we have to be bold, number one. We might not be liked or accepted by many who don't agree, but that's okay. We're fighting for our country. We fight for our culture. And we don't mind taking the hits to get that done. So I'm proud to be part of this Congress. We just need to grow it.
Yes.
We need to grow from this small majority, which gives us a chance to at least expose people to a bigger majority where we can really govern and get the people's will.
This is not working with a one-seat majority, is it?
No. It isn't, other than we're having, this is the key, to have the ability to at least set the agenda, to have the conversations, to lead hearings that we are, to put bills on the floor. As long as we come together, those bills that will get to the floor, get a vote, and at least people see that we have a voice in the House that's worked with on their part.
That's very important for people listening right now. We must grow our majority. We have to retain the majority in the U.S. House so we can run our committees, so we can investigate the Biden crime family, so we can secure the border, so we can return to a national energy policy where we're energy dominant. We've got to lay the ground for Trump to get back into office, sit behind that resolute desk, and be the resolute leader that America needs.
Absolutely. And, you know, what's interesting, we've been there before. We know what it feels like. We were there before Biden. All we have to do is get back. And if I can make that ask, for those who are listening, we need to build majority. Continue to have the kind of leadership we have, Mark, that we're doing right now. Just build on top of that. Bring more folks in that have experience, have the love for our country, and we'll get it back for sure.
We're talking with Congressman Burgess Owens, former football star for the hated Raiders. I got to say that in Kansas City. Hey, we're going to talk about your football career, some of the folks you know in our listening area, including Deron Cherry, and also going to tap into some of your committee work on transportation infrastructure, where we're headed as a nation. You're listening to Mark Alford's America. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Mark Alford's America, where we give you a behind-the-scenes look at Washington, D.C., and let you meet some of the fantastic people helping shape our fantastic nation. Today, we're talking with Congressman Burgess Owens in his office in Cannon Office Building. And Burgess, tell me about your first trip to Arrowhead Stadium as an Oakland Raider.
Okay. Well, I remember that. Actually, I played with the Jets for 7 years, so I have a feeling that we probably played Kansas City somewhere in those years. One thing about the Jets, 40 years ago, they're doing exactly the same thing they're doing today. They can't figure out a way to win, save their lives. So, but my first experience in Arrowhead was actually with the Raiders, a very hot summer day, and of course on the AstroTurf in those days.
Oh, yeah.
We still have that.
No, they don't. We have turf.
Okay. It was one you don't forget, because boy, everybody was sweating. And I'm not sure if we won the game or not, but there was a season. That was a season for us where we started off in doing really, really bad. We had a team meeting. We were actually 2-5, and Gene Upshaw pulled together a team meeting, and he said something to us that I'll never forget. He says, "Listen, guys, we take 1 week at a time. We can get to the Super Bowl." Now, I was with the Jets for 7 years. Super Bowl was never a conversation. We're down 2-5. And to hear that was unbelievable to me. And believe it or not, we had guys who bought on. We talked about it. We said, okay, 1 game at a time. Al Davis had heard about one of the guys on our team that wasn't on board. The next week, he was traded to Houston. That's Al Davis. Al Davis didn't put up with any negative thoughts. And we did that 1 week at a time. And we actually were underdogs at the very beginning of the season. We were underdogs every game we played in the Super Bowl. And it was one of the greatest lessons I could learn. Actually, the motto of our team here. You cannot control the scoreboard, but you can't control the hustle. And that's what our team did that year. And I will say this, we had some remarkable games. Those days of Kansas City and Oakland were remarkable games. I hear today they're still the same.
Oh, my goodness. And I'll say this. The rivalry is I think, like none other in the NFL, actually.
And that's old. That came from the old school days of Al Davis. That culture was there and the competition. I'll say this, if I'm not rooting for the Raiders, I'm rooting for Kansas City because of Andy Reid. Andy was a good friend of mine. He was actually in Philadelphia. The same culture, and this is what is remarkable about that talent, that genius. He was able to develop the same culture with the Philadelphia Eagles that he's now developed with Kansas City. With players just want to be there. They'll cut their contracts to be there. They just have a feeling of this will continue to go and grow. And it's very tough today to make those kind of environments happen. This team effort where it's more about the team than individually, and you find the right talent and the right leadership. So I'll say this, I'm a big Andy Reid fan. Wherever he goes, I'm behind him 100%. And I'll say this, I was just so thankful to have played during that era, number one, where we had that kind of competition, whether it be the Chargers or the Chiefs, Seattle at the time. But it was a time in which it was fun to play football. And to a point that you and I were talking before we started talking here, what I realized is that America is the best when we have something in common. We have something we can point to that says we are on the same team. We're all in. In the past, it was our military. In the past, it was our flag. It was our culture. It was the fact that we had these families going to make sure we produce and give a good reputation. And those are the things that we have to hold on to keep a unified America. Sports should be a place so we don't care about politics. That we put on our jersey, whether it be the Kansas City jersey or the Oakland, whatever it is, and we feel that we're a team for that moment. We get about the politics. That's why we have to be careful not to allow the leftists to pull out politics into our sports. We can't allow the leftists to pull out politics into the military. The military has one mission, to win. Football team, basketball team has one mission, to win. And you bring all that other stuff into it, it just divides us once again, and that's what we're fighting up against right now. So I'm excited I can't say enough why I'm so optimistic, because of the Congress that people has given us the last 2 rounds have been remarkable. And Mark, I want to thank you for being part of that.
Thank you for having me.
We're having people that are coming off the sidelines saying, you know what, I'm going to take my talents wherever they are, and I'm going to put everything I can on that field because our team needs to win right now. And then that's a good place to be at this point.
Our class, our freshman class, look, we've been through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of history making that we did not want to be a part of. The speaker getting fired, basically. It's been a roller coaster. It's been an emotional time, but there are wins that we have been able to make, our class, that are significant wins for our district and our state. You're not going to hear about them on Fox News necessarily, but we are doing work here. We got H.R. 2 passed, the Secure Border Act.
That's right.
It's been sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk since May of last year. They refuse to do anything about the border. And I truly feel, and I think you feel the same way, sir, that this is an existential threat to our nation. If we don't have a secure border, we don't have a secure nation.
Yeah, well, what's happening is everything that the Biden administration has done has been anti-American, to be honest with you. And I think it's time for us to bring back the word. We have folks in our country, in our government, that purposely do things to hurt us. And in old days, it was called being traitors. And we need to call that word out again. When everything else means more to them than our country, whether power or the profit means more than our country and our patriotism, then we need to call them out for what it is. And as we're starting to do that now,
but I grew up in an era where you respected the office of the president. But there comes a time when you have to take a stand and tell the truth.
Yeah.
And it's hard when we have a president, I think, who is the most corrupt president of the United States, the most ineffective president of the United States.
How about putting anti-American on that list? Because that's what we're seeing more full time. Here's the thing. This is why I'm so excited. I think we're being blessed in this sense. I came in, we were still a minority. Didn't have a chance to do anything but get message votes. We're now a majority, a very small majority, but we can now put out, not only, we can put that together, things like H.R. 2, we can have hearings to let the people now know that education of the American people will allow us to get a bigger majority. And now that we'll even appreciate, I'll have an appreciation for that, you will also, and we'll work even harder to realize that we're here for a reason, we're here for the right timing. And American people, I think, once we realize that we're all together, we'll look back in these times and realize that we're blessed to be alive during this period, blessed to be engaged, and blessed to see our country come back from the abyss. Because we're now going to be pulled back this year because of what's going on in our country, because American people are saying, enough, I'm tired of it. Blacks, Hispanic, Jewish people, it doesn't matter what background, anyone who wants to live in a country of hopes and dreams and not fear and not anger, they're seeing that this is our time to make sure we make that change. And the Republican Party is where that answer is going to be for sure.
Another congressman from Missouri, Sam Graves, is the chair of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, on which you sit. What are some of the things you're doing in that committee to help make America great again?
Well, first of all, Sam is such a great leader. He really is. He's just solid. That's the one committee that's not a lot of drama, not a lot of chaos. Yeah. So we don't hear a lot about it. But as we know, it's integral for our country to survive, is to have commerce, to have people be able to get to places safely. I've delivered this message to Sam. Utah is one of those states that's probably the most innovative. It's the fastest growing since 2020. We're very innovative. We're very collaborative. We have a budget that we hold on to, and we're growing in a way that we need to make sure that we can come up with models that our country can grow smart, and we can keep our kids there, because we can keep the cost of living down, and they can have their businesses, they can keep that culture. My message has been, allow Utah to be the model. Allow us, because of the way we do business, to heal our issues, to make sure we're dealing with our issues of, we have the Winter Olympics coming, for instance, we have inland port. All these kind of things will help Utah, but in essence, because we do it so well, it can be the model for the rest of the country. So we have in place the leadership in that position. We have the members that truly want to make a difference for the right reasons. And once we get a bigger majority, we can get things done in a way that people will be very excited. It comes back to the majority again. Bigger majority, less chaos, more governing, and more of the will of the people being represented in that process.
Have a few seconds left. Any messages for Duran Cherry? I'm sure he and Hope are listening right now.
Tell him I say hello.
Yeah.
I'll say one thing with Duran. We kind of missed each other. I was leaving when he was coming in, but he had the talent that a person like myself, the guy retired, still saw a lot of respect that he was doing. And obviously his leadership on the field is now taken out into the business world. And I appreciate that. So at the end of the day, now's the time for America. So last little message. whatever our talents might be, it's now time to come out of the stands, off the sideline, get on the field, put it out there, because the next few months will dictate which way our country will go. And I would love to have a position where we look back at history, tell our grandkids, we were there, we took part. I knocked on doors, I donated, I made people smile and just know that there's somebody to talk with. Whatever that talent might be, now's the time, put it on the fields and save our country. And Mark, I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
You're a great American. I really appreciate you. Hey, thanks for joining us for Mark Alford's America. We'll talk again next week. Until then, remember, I believe in you. I believe that our best days are still ahead of us. And Burgess Owen,
I believe in America.
I believe in America. That's right.